We are getting very close to all of the cards being revealed for Festival of Legends, but let's take a look at more cards that have been revealed here. Starting with some pretty cards people are not super hyped for, but I don't know. Some of these I think are pretty okay, but let's take a look at some warrior cards here. The first one that I want to look at is Razer Fenn Rockstar. It's a 1 mana 1/3 Quill Boar. After you gain armor, gain 2 more. I like this card a lot. I think this card is actually really, really solid. The 3 health is pretty sweet. A 1 mana 1/3 stat line is pretty solid. We've seen it be pretty popular for quite a while now, that stat line, and typically those statted minions do decently well. And, you know, this even just makes your hero power, if you have this on board, your hero power essentially is 4 armor instead of just the 2. So that seems pretty good. There's also other cards that give you armor, so I think you can get some pretty good use out of this. And very similarly to the Void Touched Attendant, that is also a 1 mana 1/3. Even if you did another card and a hero power in the same turn to be able to get armor, it's pretty likely that you'll be able to squeeze this in that same turn as well and get additional armor because it's only 1 cost. So I really like this one a lot. And it's a Quill Boar, which is important for the next couple of cards. The next one we have here is Power Slider, a 3 mana 1/2 rush. With Battlecry, gain +1/+1 for each minion type you've played this game. Okay, so that's why I mentioned the Quill Boar for the previous one, kind of important. I kind of like the menagerie style that they're trying with this. There's a couple of cards here, this one included, that kind of want you to play multiple types of minions. I think there might be something there, but are the pieces going to be good enough is my concern. And how many types can you really get value with some of these? I think the most likely case is you're going to get 3 or 4 types of minions. That Quill Boar that we just saw, there's some pretty good pirates, even cheap pirates, that Warrior has access to. And also Elemental, Beast, and Dragon. So, I mean, maybe you get all 5 before you play this, but I think 3 or 4 seems pretty realistic. In a way, it's kind of reminiscent of multicaster in casting, different spell schools, right? You have to play these different minion types, and 3 or 4 kind of felt like an average or typical. So I'm going to use that kind of thinking, that kind of logic for this as well, unless you really build your deck in a certain way. I'm putting all of those minion types in the deck. There is that draw variance. So again, even if you put 6 or 7 different minion types, I'm probably going to say you'll be able to play 3 or 4. So Power Slider, I'm going to say, let's say you get +3/+3 of stats. That is a 4/5 with Rush. Pretty good. The thing that I don't like about this is I don't like it being at 3 mana. I know that even paying 3 mana for a 4/5 Rush is pretty good. I would have liked to see this be at 2 mana. I think this at 2 mana would be pretty great. The next one here also kind of works with multiple minion types. It is Rockmaster Voon, a 4 mana 4/3 Battlecry. Copy a minion of each minion type in your hand. It is the warrior legendary minion. So the way this works is you play this, the Battlecry goes off, and it's very similar to other effects we've had. If you have maybe, like I mentioned, a Quill Boar, let's say a mech and a dragon in your hand, it will put a copy of each of those 3 minion types into your hand. So you have to have hand space for this. You have to have those minion types, and they have to be minions that you want to copy. I don't really like this one very much. Maybe this is something that you would want to put in this deck, but I would rather just be getting value out of those minions themselves or some other sort of payoff rather than copying them, especially if I don't feel like they're good enough on their own to be, good, solid play, standalone cards. Why do I want to copy them, right? So for me, I don't feel like this is a good enough payoff for having that. I think you could build a menagerie style deck probably without this. maybe if your deck is pretty low curve, you could get value out of this. But if you're building more of a mid-rangey style deck, or potentially even a somewhat slower build, I don't know if you'll need this. Maybe you want the extra value, but I think there's going to be other cards you probably get more of a payout for. And then we have Drum Soloist, a 5 mana 5/5 dragon with Taunt and Battle Cry. If you control no other minions, gain +2/+2 and Rush. I don't know if you're going to want to play this as a Soloist and try to not have other minions on the board and go for a 2/2 and Rush. Also, a Taunt minion with Rush is also such a weird concept. I think there's been a couple of cards like that released, and they don't really do much, right? You either kind of want good stats with the Rush, with generally more attack, or you want it to have Taunt and you want it to have higher health. Maybe if this were a little bit stronger of a body, I would really like this. Like maybe a 5/6, I think even would be pretty cool. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It is a 5-cost dragon, though, so maybe if a menagerie deck is something, then you could play this just as a mid-game dragon. For warrior, though, I will say that there are some cards that, again, I do think could get some value with this type of menagerie-style deck. There are even some like dual type minion cards that are still going to be in standard that I do think could get played, could get used in a menagerie style deck here, like Igneous Lava Gorger, for example, 4 mana 3/5 elemental beast. So it's both elemental and a beast with that taunt, and then the Battle Cry Dredge, gain armor equal to its cost. That I think might be a little bit more considerate taunt than maybe the 5/5 dragon that we just looked at. That one seems pretty decent. You're getting the taunt body, you're getting 2 elemental types, you're getting 2 dredge, you're getting armor. So, you know, even as the turn 5 option, you could do that Razer Fenn plus this Lava Gorger. That seems like a decent turn 5. You also have the more recent card that just came out, Hookfist 3000. It's a 3 mana 4/3 mech and pirate. When after your hero attacks, gain 4 armor and draw a card. Honestly, I think those could be very solid fits into this type of menagerie deck. There's also Amalgams and Mistake that you could just play, and they all do kind of have some value on their own. And then that's all kind of leading to this final warrior card, Roaring Applause. It's a 2 mana spell. Draw a card, repeat for each minion type you control. Now, the big comparison I've seen, and definitely understandably, is to the impending catastrophe for Warlock of it's a 2 mana, draw a card, repeat for each imp that you control. This one, a little bit worse because it's not just like one type. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. But I do think Warrior has other draw as well that Warlock doesn't really have. Warlock, I don't think, has as many different draw mechanics other than like the hero power is the big one. I actually do think that Warrior has some different draw mechanics. So I'm actually okay with this being like a quote unquote worse version of the catastrophe. But again, even as I said, you know, maybe you're just going to get 2 or 3 draws and that's probably fine. The thing that I don't like about this, very much similar to the catastrophe though, is you do have to have those minions out. It's a lot easier for Warlock with the imps. They're generally very cheap to get out. A lot of the minions that I was just talking about for different minion types are 3, 4, 5 cost. So this is probably going to come a little bit later in the game, or you have to be able to actually stick some of those minions on board and then play this to be able to get some value if you do get to play it a little bit earlier or mid-game. I don't think it's terrible though. Now looking at some mage cards, we have Rewind, a 2 mana arcane spell. Discover a copy of another spell you've cast this game. pretty interesting. You do get a discover choice, so at least it's not just giving you a random copy of a spell that you've cast. You do get to pick that, so you kind of can play your game or build your deck even in a way where you likely will have very specific spells that you're looking for in your discover effect. Seems pretty decent. It's 2 mana. Think you could probably fit it into many turns, and honestly, this might go in a couple different varieties of decks. We have Audio Splitter, a 3 mana 4/3 mech with Death Rattle. Copy the highest cost spell in your hand. Death Rattles and then giving you something kind of slow. It's a little slow. Not terrible. Also, I do kind of like that this is a mech. I mean, honestly, putting something like Ziliax with the magnetic onto this could make your opponent want to clear this off. And you're still ideally going to get some sort of value. As long as you have a spell in your hand, even if it's a cheap spell, you will still get a copy of it when this dies. So you'll get some sort of value from it. And it's kind of aggressively statted with that higher attack. So this honestly seems pretty decent. The next one we have is Light Show, a 3 mana arcane spell. Shoot 2 beams at enemies that deal 2 damage. Shoot 1 more for each light show you've cast this game. Kind of interesting. So you can run 2 copies in the deck. So ideally you would be, playing at minimum 2 of these. And then you're probably trying to discover a copy of that with Rewind that we just looked at. Maybe you're getting copies of this with cards like Savara. The Naga gets you a copy of the last 3 spells that you've played. Pretty interesting. Maybe you could even discover this. It is 3 cost, so you also could discover this with the Nagaling from School Teacher. That definitely could be something. If you potentially are discovering just other cards or spells, you could pick more copies of this up. I do think that this on its own I don't think there's going to be a full light show deck, like light show archetype. You could probably try to put some stuff in to capitalize on that, but I don't think you'll be able to get enough copies of these repetitively for like a big OTK or to close out a game. This is going to be a bit of a support and fill in, or you can try to build a deck to create a bunch of light shows, and then you'll have to fill in with other stuff. So very interested to see this one. Then we have Keyboard Soloist, a 4 mana 2/4 Naga. Battle Cry, if you control no other minions, summon 2 1/2 amps with spell damage +1. So it costs 4. You have to have this be the only minion that you control to get those spell damage things. Not unreasonable for sure. I think there's definitely been some mage archetypes in the past that have only played a select few minions. So I think, especially depending on the way that you build the deck, you definitely could get that soloist effect of not having other minions. The question is, do you want to? Is getting that spell damage with those minions going to be enough? Or would you rather just play minions that already have spell damage on them than going for this Keyboard Soloist? To me, this seems pretty slow, kind of expensive for an effect that you have to actually set up and it's not guaranteed. I don't know. I'm not super keen on this one. Then we have Volume Up, a 4 mana arcane spell. Draw 3 spells. Finale, discover a copy of 1. Wow. Yeah, so 4 mana to draw 3, but it's not just draw 3 cards. It's specifically drawing you 3 spells. So that tutor type effect, anyone, again, that hasn't heard that, it's an old term that comes from Magic the Gathering, meaning you are drawing something specific, essentially. You are drawing specifically spells in this case. Fantastic effect. I mean, honestly, even if it was just 4 for draw 3 spells, that would be pretty great. But it also has this potential upside of Finale, discover a copy of 1. That could work with that light show, or even just some other damage. It could work with a lot of different stuff. So I really like this one a lot. I think this one is fantastic. And then we have a couple of priest cards here. We have the legendary spell Love Everlasting. It's a 3-mana holy spell. Again, legendary spell, so you only have one of these in your deck, but your first spell each turn costs 2 less. Lasts until you don't play a spell on your turn. Wow, so that is a potentially permanent effect, but it's something that you have to pay attention to. If you were to play this on turn 3, you have to make sure that you're going to be playing spells every turn. This is a holy spell, so maybe there's some synergy there. With it decreasing the cost of your first spell every turn, even by 2, that's pretty impactful. Making a 3-mana spell only cost 1 or a 4-mana spell costing 2. We've seen how impactful I think Nerubian Vizier with getting that effect of killing off an undead and then getting a spell and it costs 2 less. Even that has been very powerful. So I do think that this spell here is going to see play. I think that this is going to be huge. And on the other side, there's no way for the opponent to play around this, to stop it, to prevent it. So this seems huge. Then we have Shadow Chord Distort. It's a 3-mana shadow spell. Give a minion -5/-5. If it has 0 attack, destroy it. Pretty powerful tool here for Priest. This is also pretty impactful because it has the potential to kill things that then put the attack to 0. So a 5/8, let's say, a 5/8 taunt could be targeted and then it would be set to 0 attack, so it would destroy it. Previously, if it didn't have that, you could just say -5/-5 and it would be a 0/3, but that minion would still be there. So this is pretty sweet. It also doesn't say friendly or enemy minion, so I'm curious to see if there's going to be some sort of targeting your own thing that you want some sort of maybe death rattle effect on or anything like that. But honestly, even just the -5/-5 stats, in a lot of cases, will be probably clearing those minions. So this seems pretty powerful. And then the last one we have is Fight Over Me, a 4-mana shadow spell. Choose 2 enemy minions. They fight. Add copies of any that die to your hand. This seems okay. This seems like a little bit more of a specific tool. I don't know if you're going to want to play this against aggressive decks. Spending 4 mana to take out 2 small minions maybe is not the greatest. Getting those copies to your hand, in some cases, maybe against some decks, you might want that, but I would imagine this is probably used for more like mid-range style or mid-game minions, maybe larger minions, and especially against decks that aren't going to be creating wide boards of like 1/1s. You don't want to pay 4 mana to make 2 enemy 1/1s hit into each other. Like that's not where you're going to want to use this kind of card. That's just not really great value unless you absolutely have to. But in most cases, I don't think that's where you're going to want to use this. It seems like a card you're going to want to get a little bit more value out of than potentially the other 2 that we saw that are a little bit more flexible. And especially that legendary spell, you can kind of play that at any point. This one, a little bit more of a requirement. Well, what do you think of these cards? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for all of the support so far. I've been loving seeing everyone's comments on these videos. Thank you. And as we work towards that 1,000 subscribers, if we get there, we'll be doing a giveaway for a mega bundle. So please continue to subscribe, check out these videos, share these with everyone so that everyone can also find the channel. And check out the description for how to submit a theory crafting deck to be featured in a video and have a chance at winning a reward track tavern pass for the new set as well. Thank you so much for checking these out. Go ahead and click into this video next to check out the previous card reveals, and I'll see you in the next one.